Hello and welcome to the Ink Archive. My name is Briar, and today I am joined with Tyler, and we're going to be watching a game from our locals of Steel Song versus Sapphire Steel. This is going to be a very interesting match. So, what do you think we'll be seeing and what this match will be, Tyler?
This will be interesting. These two decks have a pretty high level of interaction. They look to interact with their opponent quite a bit through cards like let Storm Rage on. Along came Zeus. These like damage removal cards and take like really early board control. Typically, Sapphire Steel looking to ramp into these bigger cards to do it. While Steel Song is looking to cheat these cards out with like Cinderella or the Ursula. So it'll be interesting to see if the Sapphire Steel can kind of keep the Steel Song uh, under control until they can get to those bigger cards or not. But that would be what I would expect to see from this match.
Yeah, that it's going to be an interesting match to see. Where I'm a big fan of the Steel Song deck. That is one of my favorite decks to play around, to play with at locals, and even just to play in general. It's been one of my favorites since set one. It's been out. Being able to play a whole new world with that aerial has been very big, and then it's got more and more resources from these new sets that have come out to help support that type of build. Um, and it looks like this build, from what I was talking to the player, is he was playing the 10K winner deck that I think was Brennan. I think was his name. He's playing that list today. Which is pretty cool. That means they have the lanterns in it, which is kind of neat to see in this set 5 format.
Yeah, Lantern's been a card we haven't seen in Steel Song for a long time. Um, and while it's an interesting pick, this I think the notable thing about this deck is it's actually on the four Naveens. I think a lot of Steel Song players are playing like two, maybe three. Um, this Steel Song deck looks to almost always hit Prince Naveen on turn four to play a whole new world. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Getting that whole new world definitely on turn 4 is definitely good, and then being able to have that aerial the turn before it, being able to sing another song that you would get off the whole new world is actually pretty powerful gameplay to do.
yeah, so we'll have to see how this Steel Song player ends up playing this. Sapphire Steel might have bit of a hard time dealing with Steel Song. Its level of interaction is pretty big. If I'm Steel Song, I'm probably looking to not play a ton of characters and just look to ramp into my bigger cards, such as like the Tinkerbell and the Robin Hood. Cogsworth is a huge one in this matchup. If they can get a couple Cogsworth down, like that pretty much seals a game. So we'll have to see if what the Sapphire Steel player can pull out here.
Yeah, and it looks like the Sapphire Steel is kind of just doing what it normally does, being able to play that popsicle on turn 1 and then playing Shmi. And it looks like he might be debating on what he's going to ink, and it looks like I see that fishbone quill in his hand. So it looks like he's trying to play that so he can figure out what he's going to ink with that fishbone quill as well. Which is pretty big. Going up to 4 ink this turn is definitely really good, and it's what they're looking to do.
Yeah, it means they're going to turn. They're going to five ink next turn, and that's like Cogsworth ink, and that's pretty huge. I think that's like the biggest number you really want to be hitting. Um, and I do like the play of like getting Fishbone Quill down here. Steel Song hasn't played nearly as much item interaction or item removal, so um, being able to play these Fishbone Quills for free is pretty nice.
It looks like he even did a one jump ahead to get to 5 ink this turn is pretty big. So going really into 6 or 7 ink the next turn is pretty huge.
Yeah, it's real nice. And then setting up this Robin Hood too. I do like setting up the Robin Hood here. He's a pretty powerful shift target. Um, if he attacks, even if the Steel Song player like what he did is shift into it and lose me, it's not a huge deal because he can answer that back with his own Robin Hood if he has his own, which would be pretty huge and kind of keep this board clear, which is really what Sapphire Steel wants to do. To that's where we'll see it here. pretty good for Sapphire Steel.
Oh, just correcting the damage here because Robin Hood does deal 3 damage back. Uh, so putting that Robin Hood's willpower pretty much at half. So that's an easy into range number for some of the songs the Steel Song player has, just to knock it out pretty easily.
Yeah, it's not in range of Strength or Storm, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him crack Popsicle here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do. Yeah, he
Doesn't
doesn't
really crack it.
heal
Yeah.
like a Robin Hood.
No.
Yeah,
But we ink a Ursula here and then playing an Ariel to maybe find some of those songs that he's looking for.
Bare Necessities isn't the worst card to see against Sapphire Steel. They're playing like the same level of interaction that you are. So being able to scout for these grab your swords or along came Zeus is a pretty big deal. Or it could just be ink. Not a bad
Yeah,
option either.
you can also remove some of those items in there, so those other fishbone quills or even those lucky dimes that come out, he can get rid of those if those could potentially become a threat in the future as well.
Another Robin Hood coming down. I don't hate all these Robin Hoods coming down. They're not super easy for Steel Song to interact with, which is nice. Um, he does need to find a way to get cards back in his hand though here. Hopefully he finds a hero in the next turn or two that would really keep him in a good spot. Forces the
Well,
Zeus out of Ariel, which is nice too.
yeah, I mean, it looked like he really didn't need that popsicle to heal, so it kind of
Yeah,
just negated that.
well, it depends because if he has Strength of a Raging Fire, I think you'd rather play Strength of a Raging Fire on it, simply because Strength can vary in how much it actually ends up doing. So like taking the opportunity to use it at a good time is pretty huge. Um, so I wouldn't say completely negated, but yeah, it's getting Zeus out of the hand is always very good.
Oh yeah. Now we have another Robin Hood down with some pretty big stuff here. So we've seen 3 of these shift Robin Hoods on the Sapphire Steel players field and got rid of one. Now one has 2 damage and replaced the one that the Steel Song player knocked out last turn. So
Yeah, I mean, Steel Song has to use a lot of removal on these Robin Hoods. Obviously it wants to go 1 for 1 with them, but it may not always happen that way, just due to the varying damage that Strength of a Raging Fire can do, and then Storm Rage on only doing 2 damage. So it hopefully getting more than one, but looks like the Steel Song player is seeing a lot of their Along Came Zeus's already, so it's
yeah, I
pretty
mean,
unfortunate for Sapphire Steel here.
what has that been 2 or 3 of these Zeuses already? It's been pretty big. It's almost seeing all of them because that deck only plays 3 Zeus. So that's pretty big if you've seen that many. Which also means that the Sapphire Steel player that knows that hey, there's not a lot of Along Came Zeus's coming out. So that means a lot of those that 5 damage is not coming out on his characters. So which is pretty big.
Yeah, like Steel Song losing these Zeus's pretty early is not the worst thing, but also not the best thing because there are things that it needs to hit in this matchup, like Tamatoa or some of these bigger, like Tinkerbell, Giant
Mhm.
Fairy is a big one to hit. So not obviously Robin Hood's a good target as well, but um,
Well, we're
attacking the
challenging.
Robin
Yeah.
Hood obviously to get this draw off the Rapunzel he showed a second ago.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's good drawing. Being able to get those draws. Rapunzel's such a powerful card, and being able to heal and draw equals to whatever the damage that you healed is. It's been pretty powerful since her release.
yeah, I think for the game's lifespan, she's always going to be a pretty like strong and relevant Amber card. I don't ever see this card not being in Steel Song decks. Um, and like being able to not have to play a whole new world against a player who has 1 card in hand is pretty good for Steel Song. It's like what it wants to really do is starve its opponent on on resources here.
So we've got Robin Hood questing out and a McDuck Manor out, which to get the location just to gain some lore, passive lore throughout the turns. And that's definitely a hard thing to deal with in the Steel Song deck is to deal with locations. Because there's really nothing really removal on it besides Along Came Zeus. Just but it only deals 5 damage, so they would have to either challenge into it to get rid of it or put 2 Along Came Zeuses on it, which is not ideal for the deck.
Yeah, it's like one of the only weaknesses a Steel Song really has is like its characters just don't have a lot of power or strength. Like they just don't have the strength to get there in the end against a bunch of locations. But just this one on the board isn't too scary. Um, really hoping to see a Cogsworth. Just the Mickey though.
Yeah, no Cogsworth on him. That's nothing is still in hand, so losing a lot of cards in hand. And as the Steel Song player is just building a bigger board and a wider board with all of their characters, and no way for the Sapphire Steel to kind of interact with them at this point.
Yeah, they're really looking for grab your swords, but even grab your swords, these characters just have too high willpower to really be affected by grab your swords. Yeah, we'll see the scoop here. Going into game two, I imagine Sapphire Steel going first again. Like I said, hopefully ramping into like these bigger cards, and I would probably forgo the characters and just focus on getting this ramp out because like Steel Song is just gonna throw all the removal at these early characters, and you're not gonna get anything done in the end. I'd like to see him like try and speed into like a Cogsworth or a giant Tinkerbell or something like that.
Yeah, that would be good to see. Tinkerbell would definitely be good having that giant tink dealing 1 damage to all of the opposing characters, and then just having a strong presence of having a big body, being a 4/5, having that four strength definitely can knock out a lot of the characters, and then whenever she does knock out those characters, she gets to deal 2 damage to any other chosen character, which can definitely hurt and clear the board on the Steel Song side.
Yeah, like going playing Tinkerbell Giant Fairy and then the next turn getting to attack and play grab your swords or something is usually really strong against Steel Song. It just you have to survive long enough to kind of put that together, and it's tough against Steel Song.
Well, it looks like they mulligan kind of just altering their hands. One doing 2 and the other one doing almost I think it was like 4 or 5 cards. So just to find those right answers. So we've already kind of talked about what the Sapphire Steel is kind of looking for is they're wanting probably more characters at this point, and just so they can ramp up and get those big characters out. What do you think the Steel Song's kind of looking for?
They're gonna run the same game plan they did last game. If they're in an ideal world, I think they're looking to go Cinderella into Ursula and Ariel, and then Naveen, and play a whole new world. That's like kind of what Steel Song wants to do almost every game if it can do it. It's not going to happen every game, but I think it just wants to run that game plan again. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that in this matchup. Again, the only card you're really truly worried about is Cogsworth, and if you can just build a wide enough board by playing Whole New World a bunch of times, like they're just not going to be able to deal with anything very well.
Yeah, and it looks like the Steel Song player has 2 whole new worlds in their hand after that altering, which is kind of rough for them. I mean, one's okay, but having 2 uninkable songs that are 5 cost this early on in the game is a little rough for them.
Yeah. So if they find a Naveen, it won't be the worst thing in the world. They just are looking to get to 4, but hopefully they have enough Ingables to get there.
I mean, nothing was played on the Sapphire Steel's turn 1, so no popsicle. Now we're getting to go into their turn 2, playing a Shmee down, so which is pretty good, pretty common for them to do, but definitely not a lot of drawing going on in this early game for what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, Sapphire Steel, as much as it wants to get Popsicle down on turn one or Robin Hood down on turn one, I think this deck is one of the only ones that can like not play a thing on turn one and not hate it. Just because they're ramping so much, and so they'll get to the numbers they want to get to. Um, but seeing these opposing singers on the other side is pretty scary.
Oh wow, we get to drop down a Pete game referee, which basically just stops that Steel Song player from playing actions on their next turn. So all those songs that they have with the in their hand, all those singers on the board basically do nothing, which is pretty big for that Sapphire Steel just to be able to survive that extra turn going inward.
Yeah, it's pretty huge, especially because I think turn four they're not going to be really doing a whole lot because even if they have Hero, they don't have an item to banish with it. So like their turn four is probably going to be pretty. They're probably not going to be doing a whole lot unless they like Fishbone, Quill, and do a whole bunch of that stuff. So they kind of need to slow down the Steel Song opponent, who, like I said, went Cinderella, Ursula, Ariel here. It's kind of the standard.
And of course, as he's trying to sing the song with that Ursula, that Pete effect's still in effect that basically says no actions for you. Um which is definitely big and definitely a good thing going on. And going back into the Sapphire Steel player, it looked like I saw a Cogsworth flash in his hand, which is big and something that he's probably going to try to ramp into. But singing Pete singing "Let the Storm Rage on that Cinderella to knock it out and then drawing a card, pretty big.
Yeah, looking to get these singers off the board is pretty important for Sapphire Steel. They really need to like slow down what the Steel Song player is developing on their side.
And I think we're debating on either having Pete sing or Quest. And looks like he is going to think he's just going to quest with it. Yep, he's going to quest with it, and then figure out what he's going to play. All right, there we go. And then he's just going to pay the 2 for that 1 jump ahead to get the that ink ramp going in.
Yeah, it's a tough decision here because, like I said, Blue Steel typically doesn't have a whole lot to do on turn four other than Hiram. So if he doesn't have a whole lot of other plays, just pushing lore through is probably okay. He's probably going to lose this Smee to like a Storm Rage on anyway. So just getting it and getting the lore out of it while you can isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. And it looks like he drew Naveen for turn for our Amber Steel player. So which is big because he does have those 2 whole new worlds going on. But now we have Ursula singing "Let the Storm Rage On" to knock out that Shmi, to draw a card. And then Ariel singing "Long Came Zeus" to knock out that Pete. And now we are going to be playing that. I believe he should have that 4 ink to play that Prince Naveen to then sing that whole new or play the whole new world for free and draw the new 7 cards.
Yeah, it looked like he was debating it for a second because like the Sapphire Steel player doesn't have anything on the board right now. And I think there was still another like Storm Rage on or something there. So maybe he wanted to hold off a turn, but didn't end up doing it.
No, but it did get rid of 2 Cogsworth, a Lucky Dime, and a Grab Your Swords, which is definitely a good hit with that whole new world. But now the Sapphire Steel has a whole new 7 cards, and looks like he's just going to be drawing those cards with those popsicles now.
Yeah, finally something for Hiram to kind of snack on to draw a couple cards here. Hopefully, looking probably also to get whatever Cogsworth he has left in the deck to get them down. Eh, This is already looking pretty rough for Sapphire Steel. They really need to see like Tink and Grab Your Swords or something to start getting rid of this board that he's staring down right now.
Yeah, and it looks like I mean, I don't know how many Grabs his Swords he plays in the deck, but I know we've seen the one. And I didn't see anything in game one. This is the only one we've seen so far. So he might only either be playing one or two, and if it's one or two, he hasn't really been drawing through this deck a lot, so he hasn't really seen a lot. Um, but it looks like the Steel Song player is just playing the two Let the Storm Rage Ons to kill the two small Robin Hoods that he had on the board, and being able to draw two cards and then just sit there with all these cards in his hand to basically answer anything the Sapphire Steel player has for him.
Yeah, if I'm the Steel Song player, I think you are really going pedal to the metal here, and you just start questing and like there. So Sapphire Steel right now is so behind. It's going to be really hard for them to come back into this game. Um, we do see a bare necessities in his hand, so I wouldn't be surprised that after we look at these four and see what we hit, if he doesn't just like play the bare necessities and like actually pay for it and quest with Naveen. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we see him sing it.
And it looks like we didn't get anything off that aerial. But then Aveen is definitely singing that bare necessities. And quite a pretty interesting hand. We had the Shift Robin Hood, a Lucky Dime, and a Pete. So some interesting cards they had in their hand.
Yeah, if you're Steel Song, like that's probably the best thing you could have seen. There's nothing really super scary on the side of Sapphire Steel, so he knows he's pretty clear to just start committing to the board more and just like start to close out this game. Um, if I had to guess, this is probably where like this slips out of the grasp of Sapphire Steel. But we'll have to see. Tinkerbell plus Grabber Swords could still be pretty lethal here.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be dealing 3 damage, which does knock out most of the board except for like a Robin Hood and that Ursula there. But looks like he's just gonna quest off and have that Ursula sing the strength just to knock out that Robin Hood.
Yeah, like this, it's gonna be really hard for Sapphire Steel right now.
I mean, there's that Cogsworth, but I don't know if it's a little too late for it.
Yeah, it's tough. So that like Cogsworth is a great start to getting back into this game. If he had, let's say, like again, like grab your swords and Tinkerbell here, that's tough. I think that Pete's gonna lock this up.
Yeah, no,
Not having access to grab your swords next turn is really tough.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big one, and then just being able to quest for 9 is definitely huge. And then of course it looks like the Sapphire Steel just shook their hand into the game, scooped it up, because he didn't draw anything good.
Yeah, this is one of those like moments that Steel Song just did what Steel like it enacted its game plan, and Sapphire Steel unfortunately just doesn't have great ways of interacting with it. Um, it it doesn't get to sing these songs as early as it would like. And he didn't get to do a lot of the ramping that he wanted to do. Um, and even if he did, he didn't see the big payoffs that he wanted to see. So it was just like a combination of like not seeing like the one or two combination of cards he really needed to see, whereas Steel Song was just like turn one, turn two, turn three, and kind of did its thing.
Yeah, no, that Steel Song player just had everything they needed to and really saw that ultimate game plan where the Sapphire Steel didn't really get to see anything that it was really trying to do. It missed a turn one play from that in game two, not being able to kind of draw and set up for that Flabbersham if they did draw it going into turn four, which was a little rough because he didn't really get to do a lot on turn four besides ramping up to go into I think was 5 ink at that time. So there wasn't a lot, and I saw him inking Fishbone pretty early too, and didn't get to really play one.
Yeah, like I said, it's probably a combination of he has the ramp but doesn't have the payoffs, and so it's like it's tough that it's like hard to decide whether or not you're going to be ramping, especially with Fishbone Quill, which takes cards out of your hand. and since he doesn't have any ways to draw back into cards he needs to see, the Steel Song player is going to see that and go, "Oh, I don't need to whole new world here because you don't have cards in hand." And that's like the worst position. It's I think it's like the biggest weakness of Blue Steel, other than the fact that it doesn't have super reliable board wipes. Your card draw is just kind of out of reach sometimes. Here I'm having to rely on another card, and whole new world, while a very strong card, you have to see it. And like hard playing a whole new world is really tough. It's not the greatest thing to be doing in this game. Obviously, singing it, or I guess if you're far enough in a lead, hard playing it's not the worst, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
not.
having a lot of the ink from that Sapphire Steel player would have definitely been okay to play it, but it didn't seem like he was able to even get there. It seemed like the that Steel Song player just was able to just out tempo and just aggro out as quick as he could and just answer everything that the Steel Song or the Steel Sapphire player just threw at him. It just everything they had on board just immediately got knocked out. Never got to stay along around long enough to really do anything, which was, of course, the key thing what Steel Song's trying to do. But for that Sapphire Steel, it was just really hurt.
Yeah. So it was a good match. But again, it's a card game. Sometimes that's the way it goes.
It does. But thank you guys for joining us, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Until then, we will see you next time.
See ya.